If you ever went to a boarding school in Nigeria, you already know how loud silence can be. Lights out, and the dormitory sinks into that heavy, humming quiet. You can hear everything: the squeak of bunk beds, the soft hiss of mosquito coils, the distant croak of frogs outside the window. The smell of kerosene lamps still hanging in the air. The faint rustle of students turning under thin blankets. For some, that silence was peace. For others, it was the beginning of something else. Something that felt like the air itself was listening. Boarding schools were small worlds, isolated, cut off from everything you knew. You learned order, fear, and faith all in the same breath. Superstitions weren't just stories, they were the invisible rules that kept you safe. Don't whistle at night. Don't sweep after dark. Don't answer when something calls your name. I remember one boy, Bassi. We shared a dorm at St. Peter's long before I transferred to St. Jude's. He claimed he'd heard it one night, a cry from the bush. He never spoke about it again. And somehow, no one asked. That's how it begins, in silence. Long before the boarding schools, before uniforms, prefects, and midnight roll calls, there were villages, and in those villages there were stories. My grandmother used to tell me about the abandoned child of the forest, a baby left by its mother near the riverbanks, whose cries lured travelers into the bush. Those who followed the sound were never found. She said the child's spirit was cursed to wander, crying for eternity, sometimes out of pain, sometimes out of vengeance. In another version, from a Yoruba village called Odo Ona, the creature wasn't a ghost at all. It was a familiar spirit sent by witches to test the hearts of the living. If you answered its cry with pity, you failed. If you ignored it, you were spared. And in the Cross River region, the Efik people told of Ukpong Dem, the forest soul that mimicked human voices to lead hunters astray. They said it took the form of a child wrapped in white cloth. Even colonial missionaries wrote about it. One Reverend H. Clollins in 1911 described hearing a strange infant-like wail in the mangroves near Calabar, rhythmic, mournful, and unnaturally human. He called it the crying thing of the bush. When the British built boarding schools deep in rural Nigeria, they built them near forests. And when night fell, the old cries found new listeners. First, the night watchman heard it, then the students. And soon, every dormitory in the country had its own version. The bush baby had found a new home. At St. Jude's, the story wasn't a legend, it was a warning. Every junior knew the rule. When you hear the bush baby cry, you don't answer. The dormitory was long and narrow, 20 bunks on each side. Iron frames, thin mattresses, white nets tied in knots. The air always smelled of chalk, detergent, and something old, like rusted pipes and soaked shoes. Outside, the bush pressed close, thick, dark, alive. When the wind blew, the grass moved like something breathing. It was around exam season when it started again. At first, just a faint sound, like a baby whimpering in the distance. Then, night after night, it came closer. Chike, tall, stubborn, pretending he wasn't afraid. Ifioma, quiet, sharp-eyed, skeptical. And Musa, the storyteller, trembling with belief. The first night, Chike laughed. "Na bush, baby," Musa whispered. Ifioma hissed, "Shut up, it's just one stray dog." But then the cry came again. "Ay, ay," slow, human, wrong. By the third night, even the teachers noticed. Students stopped sleeping. The senior prefect banned late-night toilet breaks. And still, the cry continued. One night, Chike decided he'd had enough. He grabbed his torchlight, muttered a prayer, and slipped out barefoot. Outside, the night was still. The bush darker than ink. The cry came again. Now above him. Chike lifted his torch, and there it was, crouched on the roofline, small, pale, wrapped in white cloth. Two eyes like mirrors catching the light. It tilted its head. The air smelled of burning palm oil. Then it leapt, straight into the trees, gone. By morning, he had a fever, couldn't speak for 3 days. He never climbed another roof again. The principal called in Mr. Iboro, a strict, no-nonsense man. Ghosts don't exist, he said, only imagination and bad lighting. One Friday night, he went to catch it himself. Torchlight, coffee, 2 guards. They waited behind the mango trees. At exactly 2:13 a.m., it began. The cry, soft, rhythmic, almost gentle. They followed the sound to the chapel. On a low branch, they saw it, a small figure wrapped in white. Mr. Iboro threw a stone. The figure fell. When they reached it, no child, just a bundle tied with red string. He laughed, put it in his bag. By dawn, he was gone. His car found wrecked on the highway, the bag empty. A week later, his wife swore she heard a baby crying outside their house. Years passed. The story became rumor again. But some people don't let rumors rest. A journalist went looking. He found the old school, overgrown, silent. Behind the dormitory, he dug up a white cloth tied with red string. That night, his recorder failed. Every file static, except one. In the background, a faint, wet sound, like a baby crying. Now the legend lives online. TikToks, Reddit threads, YouTube confessions. One post says, "My sister heard it at Sagamu. Someone answered in Calabar and fainted the next morning." Someone even uploaded a recording, a soft cry in the dark. Experts said it was a monkey, but locals said no monkey sounds that human. And one comment said, "I heard it too. I didn't answer, but it followed me home." Maybe it's not about spirits. Maybe it's about control. Boarding schools shaped children. Discipline through silence. Order through fear. The bush baby became part of that system. It did what curfews couldn't. It kept students in their beds. But sometimes, fear takes on a life of its own. Now I'm older than my teachers ever were. And there's something I never told anyone. One night, my final year at St. Jude's, I heard it too. The cry, soft, from the bush behind the dorm. It called my name. I stayed still, didn't move, didn't breathe. When I woke at dawn, my window net was open, and on the floor, just under the frame, was a small white thread. I never answered, and I never will, because some cries aren't meant to be answered. They're meant to remind us that even in the silence of a sleeping dormitory, something is still listening. Hey.